All right, ready to talk cotton. I bet you're picturing like a t-shirt or maybe a towel, right?
Can't go wrong there, right?
Hmm.
But honestly, it's kind of wild how much we just, I don't know, take cotton for granted.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Huge global impact, way beyond just clothes, too.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. We're going deep into cotton farming. We've got excerpts from this optimal climatic conditions guide.
By Farmonaut, those ag tech
Right,
folks.
Farmonaut. And let me tell you, it gets surprisingly specific.
Yeah, delicate balance, all these climate factors. Real Goldilocks situation for these plants.
Okay, see, now that's what I think most of us don't realize. Like, what's the big deal with the weather? It's a plant, right?
We'll take temperature, for example. 68 to 86 degrees, that's the sweet spot during the day, according to this guide.
That's specific, huh?
That's specific. And it's not even just about sunshine. Nighttime temps matter, too.
So they're kind of like us. Got to sleep well to be productive. Never thought about plants that way.
More alike than we realize, maybe.
What about water, though? Isn't cotton kind of a desert plant? You'd think it could handle anything.
See, that's where people assume wrong. Some dryness, sure, but the timing of the rain, that's what's critical. Guide talks about flowering and bowl formation being make or break. Imagine a huge downpour, just as those fluffy things are bursting open.
Oh, yeah, disaster. Soaked, fibers ruined, the whole thing.
Exactly.
So we got the temperature, rainfall. What else does this picky plant need to thrive?
Let's see. Well, besides the right amount of water at the right time, sunshine, and lots of it, like 12, 14 hours a day.
Seriously.
The guide actually says that impacts the fiber quality. More sun usually means stronger, softer fibers. So that super soft t-shirt you love, you can thank the climate for that.
Wow, learn something new every day.
Yeah.
But okay, thinking about all this ideal stuff,
Yeah.
that can't be the same everywhere, right? People grow cotton all over the place.
You're absolutely right. That's what's so interesting. The guide uses these examples, U.S. cotton belt, India, Australia, all different, but cotton adapts.
Each one's got its own climate challenges, I bet.
For sure. Did you know Australian cotton farmers, they deal with some serious heat, like over 104 degrees sometimes.
104, that's insane. How do they grow anything in that?
Adaptation. They've got these like special irrigation systems and mulching techniques to keep the soil cool, hold on to moisture. It's amazing what they figured out.
That's really impressive. But man, with climate change messing things up, even those tough plants have got to be hurting, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Even with all the adaptation in the world, changing climate, it's a real threat to cotton everywhere.
Almost feels unfair, right?
Yeah.
Like we're cheering for cotton's resilience, then bam, climate change comes in. So what's the guide say are the biggest threats these farmers are facing?
No sugarcoating it. The guide's pretty blunt. All that stuff we just talked about, temperature swings, the rain, even sunshine. Climate change is messing it all up.
Like it's throwing the whole just right thing out the window.
Exactly. Rainfall patterns changing. That means those crucial periods for water, totally unpredictable now. And then you've got these extreme weather events, right? Droughts, heat waves. Brutal for a thirsty crop like cotton.
So what can farmers even do? I mean, you can't fight a changing climate with a watering can.
And that is where technology steps in. This is actually where the Farmonaut guide gets, I think, really interesting. Uses their own work as an example. Not to make it an ad or anything.
Well, right, of course. But what are they doing differently? That's what I want to know.
Satellites. They're monitoring crop health from space.
Wait, seriously?
Real-time data. It's kind of wild when you think about it, analyzing light waves, stuff we can't even see to tell if a plant's got nutrient problems or if it's thirsty.
So it's like instead of just eyeballing a field, hoping for the best,
Yeah.
you get a diagnosis from orbit. That's some Star Trek stuff right there.
Right, and it's not just monitoring either. They're using AI, artificial intelligence, to predict things like pest outbreaks.
Hold on, predicting pests?
Like a weather forecast, but for bugs.
Now that is useful. They can tell a farmer, hey, watch out for aphids in 2 weeks, something like that.
Exactly. Gives them time to prepare, adjust their strategies.
Game changer. Okay, so I remember a while back, everyone was talking about drones in farming. How does this satellite thing compare?
Good question. Guide actually has this whole comparison chart. Satellites versus drones versus those sensors you put right in the ground.
So each one's got its own use.
Exactly. Drones, they're awesome for very specific stuff, like need a super detailed image of one spot. Drones are your friend. Want to apply pesticides super precisely. Drones again. But for overall management, seeing the big picture across a whole farm, doing it consistently, nothing beats satellites. It's like difference between checking a couple trees versus surveying the whole forest.
Makes sense. But this is getting pretty high tech. What's that mean for the average farmer? Is this only for those giant corporations?
That's what's cool about what Farmonaut's doing. They've got this subscription model, makes this tech way more accessible. Even smaller farms can get in on it.
So instead of subscribing to Netflix, it's like crop-saving data every month. I like it. Though we've gone pretty heavy on the tech here. What about the low-tech stuff? Any simpler things farmers can do with this crazy climate?
Absolutely. The guide is big on that too. Doesn't disregard traditional knowledge at all. Like in those hotter, drier places, they recommend things like drip irrigation, conserves water, keeps it targeted, and mulching to keep the soil cool and moist, just like those Australian farmers we talked about.
It's like going back to basics, but with a purpose. Old wisdom meets new problems.
Exactly. And the guide really stresses that combo, the old ways, PLOS, the new tech, like giving farmers this whole toolbox to work with, right?
Gives me a new appreciation for how much goes into growing, well, anything. We take it for granted.
Right. Speaking of which, one thing that blew my mind in this guide, all these climate things, temperature, rain, even how much sun, it all affects the actual cotton, like the quality of the fibers.
Oh, that's right. It's not just about the plant surviving. It's how it survives.
Exactly. Softness of a t-shirt, how tough those coffee filters are, it all goes back to that. How the plant's growing, what the environment's doing.
Makes those labels, like Egyptian cotton, Pima cotton. Suddenly it's not just a fancy name, right? It's about the climate, where it grew.
You got it. Every type of cotton's got its own thing, its genetics and the environment and climate change. They can mess that whole balance up. Could change the quality of cotton as we know it.
So you're telling me my future t-shirts might be less comfy if we don't figure this climate thing out. Okay, now that's a reason to care.
It's a real worry. But
Us.
the guide doesn't leave us hanging. There's some seriously cool stuff happening in cotton farming, too.
Please tell me there's hope for comfy clothes.
There is. Scientists, breeders, they're developing these climate-resilient cotton varieties, bred specifically to handle tougher conditions. Drought tolerance, heat resistance, even fighting off certain pests and diseases, it's all in there.
So they're like the super cotton of the future,
Mm-hmm.
genetically engineered or something.
Not quite engineered in that way, more like selectively bred over time, but yeah, it's pretty amazing what they can do now.
That's wild. But even with super cotton, what about the whole sustainability thing? Can growing cotton ever be good for the planet long term, I mean?
That is the million-dollar question. And the guide, actually, it's got this whole section, sustainable cotton farming. We're talking precision agriculture, using data and tech to be way more efficient, water use, fertilizer, the whole shebang, minimize waste, less impact.
So less is more, huh? Every drop counts.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just like using less stuff. Guide's big on soil health. So that's key EY for climate resilience. Practices like cover cropping, no-till farming. These can actually help trap carbon in the soil. Turns cotton fields from a carbon problem into a carbon helper.
Hold up, seriously. So by changing how you farm, cotton could be part of the climate solution.
That's the idea. It's a whole cycle, right? Healthy soil, healthier plants, those resist pests and diseases better, so you need less pesticides, even less impact. It's like instead of taking from the land, we're trying to work with it.
Man, that's a cool way to think about it. So cotton's future isn't just about hanging on. It's about actually getting better because of these challenges.
I like that, getting better. This whole deep dive, it really changes how you see a simple cotton plant, you know?
For sure. Never thought I'd have this whole conversation about climate change, high-tech satellites, all because of a t-shirt.
It's amazing, isn't it, the connections we find?
Totally. So for everyone listening, what's the one thing you hope they take away from this cotton adventure?
Good question. I'd say next time you grab that t-shirt, towel, whatever it is, made from cotton, just take a second. Think about where it came from, how much had to go right, even the challenges we're still figuring out. Because when we understand those everyday things, where they come from, that's how we start making better choices for us, for the planet, for everything.
That's a great point to end on. It's been awesome exploring all this with you. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. See you next time.